The breaking point. Ambassador Elena Reyes stood at the viewport of her quarters aboard Harmonia Station, gazing at the spectacular rings of Nexus Prime, the jewel of the Galactic Confederation. Despite having served as humanity's chief diplomat for nearly a decade, the sight of the massive artificial rings encircling the Azure planet still filled her with awe. Nexus Prime's city-covered surface glowed with billions of lights, home to the Confederation's central government and representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations. Elena sighed, knowing this might be the last time she would ever see this view. Behind her, the door to her quarters slid open with a soft pneumatic hiss. "They'd scheduled the vote for tomorrow morning," said Commander Marcus Chen as he entered, his normally composed face tight with concern. He handed Elena a data tablet. "Dr. Lakshmi's team just sent this. It's worse than we suspected." Elena took the tablet and scrolled through the data, her expression hardening with each swipe. For years, her team had suspected the Galactic Confederation was hindering human advancement, but the evidence had always been circumstantial. Until now. 143 patents, she whispered. Medical technologies, propulsion systems, energy solutions, agricultural innovations, all buried under fabricated safety concerns and regulatory obstacles. "For 97 years, Marcus added, since the day we joined the Confederation." Elena set the tablet down on her desk and stared at the final analysis. The data was irrefutable. The Confederation, particularly the elder species who controlled the Council, had been systematically suppressing human innovation while harvesting Earth's best ideas for themselves. "The President is waiting for your assessment and recommendation," Marcus said softly. Elena's gaze returned to the viewport, to the shining rings of Nexus Prime that suddenly seemed less magnificent and more like shackles. "Then let's not keep her waiting," she replied. "It's time humanity stopped asking for permission to reach its potential." The Grand Council chamber was a masterpiece of design, a massive dome with concentric rings of seats ascending from the central speaking platform. Holographic displays hovered above each delegation, showing their species emblem and current voting status. Elder Zivanar of the Thoril Imperium presided from the elevated chancellor's position, his 6 eyes blinking in their distinctive pattern of thinly veiled contempt. Elena and Marcus took their seats in the human section as representatives from 29 other species filled the chamber. Elder Zivanar's chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's lights as he raised 4 of his limbs in the traditional gesture to begin proceedings. "This council will now vote on Resolution 879C, Zivanar announced, his translator converting his clicking language into standard Galactic. "The measure to establish necessary limitations on human technological development and spatial expansion in the interest of harmonious galactic stability." Elena watched as the voting proceeded, delegation by delegation. The outcome was never in doubt. The elder species had ensured that. By a margin of 22-8, the resolution passed. "The resolution is adopted," Zivanar declared, all 6 eyes fixed on the human delegation. "Ambassador Reyes, your species will implement these new limitations within 1 standard galactic cycle." Elena stood, straightening her diplomatic uniform. "High Chancellor, I request permission to address the Council." Zivanar's upper eyes narrowed. "Granted, but briefly. The agenda is full." Elena walked to the central platform, feeling the weight of every alien gaze upon her. For a moment, she remembered the pride humanity had felt when first invited to join the Confederation, how they had believed it signified their acceptance as equals among the stars. "For 97 years, she began, her voice clear and steady. "Humanity has been a loyal member of this Confederation. We have abided by your regulations, contributed resources to your projects, and defended your borders. And how have you repaid us?" She activated her data tablet, projecting its contents onto the chamber's main display. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. "With lies, with sabotage, with systematic suppression of our achievements." Elena's voice grew stronger. "You fear us not because we are dangerous, but because we might one day surpass you." Zivanar rose from his seat. "This is outrageous. Remove these unauthorized." "No," Elena's voice cut through the chamber. "You will hear this. By authority granted to me by President Santos and the United Earth Government, I hereby announce humanity's immediate withdrawal from the Galactic Confederation. All human personnel, ships, and resources will be removed from Confederation space within 60 standard days." The chamber erupted into chaos. Some delegates shouted in anger, others in shock. A few simply watched in silence, as if they had always expected this day would come. Zivanar eventually restored order, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid clicking speech. "Ambassador Reyes, this emotional display only proves why humans require guidance. Your species lacks the maturity for true galactic citizenship." Elena smiled coldly. "We'll see about that." As she and Marcus left the chamber, Ambassador Colveri of the Aelari Collective intercepted them in the corridor. The Aelari's luminescent skin pulsed with blue patterns, a sign of deep concern among their kind. "Ambassador Reyes," Colveri's melodic voice was low, "you have made powerful enemies today. The Council will not allow humans to simply walk away." "We're counting on that," Elena replied. Colveri glanced around nervously. "There are things you don't know. Dangers approaching from beyond Confederation space. That's the real reason they fear human potential." "Are you offering help?" Marcus asked. The Aelari's skin briefly flashed white. "Let's just say not all Confederation members share the Elder's views. Be careful, Ambassador. The universe is changing more rapidly than you know." President Sofia Santos stood at the center of Earth Command's Strategic Operations Center. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing the locations of every human ship and installation across known space. Already, many were moving, blue dots flowing back toward Sol's system like a retreating tide. "How long until all our people are home?" she asked. Admiral Jackson Lee studied the largest display. "Most civilian vessels will return within 3 weeks. Military ships will take the full 60 days. Some of our deep research stations might need more time." "They don't get more time," President Santos said firmly. "The Confederation will look for any excuse to claim we violated the withdrawal agreement." Director Amara Okafor entered the room, her usually composed face showing rare concern. "Madam President, our intelligence networks report increased military activity at every Confederation outpost bordering our space. They're not just watching us leave. They're preparing for something." President Santos wasn't surprised. "They always feared us. Now they fear us even more. Perhaps this is the perfect time to show them why," said a new voice. Dr. Victor Nakamura walked in, looking exhausted but exhilarated. His lab coat was wrinkled from days of work without rest. "I've completed the final tests on the quantum fold drive," he said. "It works beyond our highest projections." He activated his tablet, connecting it to the main display. A simulation appeared showing a ship moving through space in ways that defied conventional physics. "The quantum fold drive creates a field that allows our ships to traverse higher dimensional spaces," Dr. Nakamura explained. "It's faster than any Confederation FTL system by a factor of 8, possibly more." "And they have no way to track it?" Admiral Lee asked. "None," Dr. Nakamura confirmed. "Their sensors can't detect ships using this technology. They'll have no idea where we are or where we're going." President Santos smiled for the first time in days. "How soon can we install it in our fleet?" "The production facilities in the asteroid belt have been manufacturing components for months," Dr. Nakamura said. "We can have the entire defense fleet upgraded within 40 days." Director Okafor raised an eyebrow. "You began production before approval." Dr. Nakamura shrugged. "I had faith the president would make the right decision when the time came." President Santos walked to the main display and enlarged the map of human space. It was small compared to the vast territories of the Confederation, but it was theirs. "Begin Operation Firewall," she ordered. "I want defense platforms at every approach to our territory. Sensor grids, automated defense systems, Everything we've been forced to keep hidden from Confederation inspectors. The Confederation will see this as aggression, Admiral Lee warned. No, President Santos replied. They'll see it as confirmation of what they've always believed, that humans are dangerous. Let them see our defenses. It might make them think twice about testing them. She turned to Dr. Nakamura. What about your quantum entanglement communication network? Ready for full deployment, he answered. Once active, it will create an instantaneous communication grid that can't be intercepted or jammed by any known Confederation technology. Begin installation immediately. President Santos nodded. As the others left to carry out their orders, Director Okafor stayed behind. Madam President, there's something else. Our long-range probes detected unusual energy signatures from beyond the Confederation's borders, in regions they've declared restricted zones. She displayed the data, strange patterns of radiation and gravitational fluctuations that matched nothing in human or Confederation records. What do you think it is? Santos asked. I don't know, Okafor admitted, but the Confederation must. It might explain why they've been so determined to control our expansion. President Santos studied the readings. Deploy additional stealth probes to those regions. If there's something out there the Confederation fears, we need to know about it. And if they catch us looking? We're not part of the Confederation anymore, Santos reminded her. Their rules no longer apply to us. As Okafor left, President Santos returned to studying the map. Humanity's territory looked small and vulnerable, surrounded by the vast Confederation space. But appearances could be deceiving. Deep Space Monitoring Station Sentinel floated silently at the edge of human territory. From this vantage point, the stars of the Milky Way stretched out like a glittering river against the cosmic void. Captain Maya Patil often found herself staring at the view during quiet moments. Today, however, her attention was fixed on the strange readings appearing on the station's long-range sensors. Are you sure this isn't a malfunction? She asked. Lieutenant David Okoro shook his head, his fingers moving quickly over the controls, running another diagnostic. All systems are functioning perfectly, Captain. These signals are real, and they're coming from beyond Confederation space. Science Officer Layla Rahman leaned closer to the display. The pattern is too regular to be natural. It's definitely artificial, and definitely not Confederation technology. Their signals all carry authentication codes, Captain Patel noted. This has none. Should we report it to Earth Command? Lieutenant Okoro asked. Captain Patel considered this. Not yet. Let's try to learn more first. Can we send a response using the same pattern? I think so, Lila said. She began programming the communication array. For 3 hours, they worked to establish contact, sending simple mathematical sequences following the pattern of the mysterious signal. Then suddenly, the station's screens flickered. A new signal, much stronger than before, flooded their receivers. We're being scanned, Layla reported. Some kind of energy beam just swept through the station. Before anyone could respond, all the screens changed. Strange symbols appeared, slowly transforming into human letters. They're adapting to our language, David whispered in amazement. A message formed. We AAVFOUNDU, as you left the cage. We come. Is that a threat? Lieutenant Okoro asked nervously. Captain Patel didn't answer. She was too busy staring at the new readings. A massive distortion in space had appeared just beyond their sensor range. Something's coming through, she said. Alert status now. The station's lights dimmed as emergency power redirected to the shields, but no attack came. Instead, a ship emerged from the distortion. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, not smooth and elegant like Confederation vessels, but angular and asymmetrical, covered in strange protrusions that seemed to shift and change as they watched. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Okoro reported. Audio and visual. Put it on screen, Captain Patel ordered. The main view screen activated, showing a dimly lit chamber. In it stood figures that were almost human in shape, but their skin was iridescent silver, and their eyes were entirely black, with faint points of light that seemed to mimic stars. "We are the nomads," one of them said in perfect English. "We have watched your species for decades. Your departure from the Confederation is significant." "Who are you?" Captain Patil asked. "Why have you contacted us now?" "Because now you might survive what is coming," the nomad replied. "The Confederation is not what you believe. It was not created to unite species but to control them, to keep them weak and contained." The alien moved closer to the screen. "We left the Confederation 10,000 years ago, as others did before us. Those who leave are usually hunted to extinction, but some survive. Some thrive." "Why are you telling us this?" Layla asked. "Because humans are different," the nomad said. "You develop technology along paths the Confederation cannot predict or understand. You might succeed where others failed." Captain Patel straightened her uniform. "What do you want from us?" "An alliance. There are others like us, independent species who resist Confederation dominance. Together, we might finally break their power and face what comes from beyond." Lieutenant Okoro suddenly cut in. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple Confederation patrol ships entering the sector. They weren't scheduled to be here." The nomad's expression changed. "They have found us. Your station has been compromised. What should we do?" Captain Patel asked. "Send all data about this encounter to your leaders. Then prepare your defenses. The Confederation will not allow this meeting to go unpunished. They will strike soon, not just against this station, but against all of humanity." "Why?" Layla demanded. "What are they so afraid of?" The nomad's star-like eyes seemed to shine brighter. "Not of you, but of what follows you. The great darkness approaches, and humanity may be the only species with the potential to stop it." The screen went dark as the nomad ship vanished into another spatial distortion, leaving Captain Patel and her crew staring at the approaching Confederation vessels and wondering what cosmic storm they had just unleashed. The cosmic revelation. The emergency meeting in the Earth Command bunker beneath New Geneva was called to order with grim urgency. The holographic display at the center of the room showed the last transmission from Deep Space Monitoring Station Sentinel before it went dark. The faces of everyone present, military officers, government officials, and scientific advisors, were illuminated by the eerie glow of the projection showing the nomad's warning. The station's quantum entanglement transmitter sent this data packet moments before Confederation ships opened fire, Director Amara Okafor explained. "Captain Patel and her crew managed to deploy their escape pods, but we've lost contact with them." President Sofia Santos watched the recording of the alien who called itself a nomad, its star-filled eyes seeming to stare directly at her even through the recording. "The great darkness approaches," she repeated the nomad's final words. "What do we make of this?" Dr. Victor Nakamura cleared his throat. "Madam President, I've analyzed the sensor data from Sentinel. The nomad ship used a dimensional folding technology similar to our quantum fold drive, but far more advanced. They've clearly been developing it for thousands of years. So they weren't bluffing about leaving the Confederation that long ago," Admiral Lee noted. More importantly, Dr. Nakamura approached the control console. "We're ready to begin," he announced. "The resonance array is fully calibrated." President Santos, who had arrived hours earlier, stepped forward. "Proceed." The chamber dimmed as power flowed into the array. A sphere of swirling energy formed at its center, pulsing with colors that seemed to shift between dimensions. "Initiating contact," Dr. Nakamura said quietly. The sphere expanded, reality itself seeming to bend around it. Then suddenly, a presence filled the chamber, not physical, but unmistakable. A consciousness vast and alien touched their minds. Consumption. Purpose. Inevitable. The concepts crashed into their thoughts like tidal waves, overwhelming in their intensity. Elena gasped, struggling to maintain her composure as the alien consciousness examined them. Small life. Different. Interesting. Dr. Nakamura adjusted the array, the AI translation matrices working furiously to convert abstract concepts into something comprehensible. We seek understanding. Santos projected through the interface. We wish to coexist. Ik existen si as kigoran su mptayan. Perpetuity is giwaruthi. There can be mutual benefit, Santos continued. Exchange rather than consumption. The presence seemed to pause, considering. CPT. Intriguing. For hours, the dialogue continued, concepts exchanged, perspectives shared. The darkness was ancient beyond comprehension, a being that had evolved to consume the energy of technological civilizations across multiple galaxies. But it had never encountered species that sought to communicate rather than hide or fight. When the connection finally ended, the chamber was silent for long moments. Did we succeed? General Rivera finally asked. I don't know, Santos admitted. But it listened. Maybe that's enough. 1 month later, a massive spatial distortion appeared at the edge of the solar system. The darkness had arrived, but not as the all-consuming force they had feared. Instead, it manifested as a swirling vortex of energy that remained stationary, pulsing with patterns that the array translated as communication. Exchange. COXIST. Attempt. As Confederation fleets gathered at the borders of human space, preparing for what they believed would be the end of all civilized life, humanity and its allies embarked on the greatest diplomatic challenge in galactic history, teaching a cosmic force that had only known consumption about the possibility of symbiosis. The day humanity walked away from the Galactic Confederation was indeed the day the universe changed, not by ending, but by beginning anew. Humanity's refusal to accept limitations, combined with their willingness to reach out rather than hide, had created a possibility that the elder species had never considered, that even the most alien of intelligences might be capable of change if approached with innovation, courage, and an open hand rather than a closed fist. And as the first tentative exchange of energy began, humanity providing focused technological output in return for dimensional knowledge beyond comprehension, a new era dawned for all species brave enough to step into the light. End continued. The energy signatures from the Nomad ship match those detected by our probes in the restricted zones beyond Confederation space. President Santos' eyes narrowed. You're saying these nomads have been operating in areas the Confederation has forbidden everyone from entering? Precisely. Nakamura nodded. And if their warning is genuine, they've discovered something there, this great darkness, that the Confederation is keeping secret from member species. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This changes everything, President Santos finally said. The Confederation isn't just suppressing our technological development. They're hiding something that threatens the entire galaxy. She turned to Admiral Lee. Accelerate Operation Firewall. I want our defensive perimeter fully operational within 30 days, not 60. What about the nomads? Director Okafor asked. They offered an alliance. If they reach out again, we'll listen, Santos replied. But first, we need to secure our position. She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. The Confederation has made its first move against us. We need to be ready when they make their next one. 3 weeks later, humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Confederation was proceeding faster than anyone had anticipated. The quantum fold drive, no longer hidden from public knowledge, had been installed in over 70% of Earth's fleet, allowing ships to return home in days rather than weeks or months. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the EDF Intrepid, Earth's newest dreadnought, as it patrolled the edge of what was now being called sovereign space, the region containing Sol System and humanity's colony worlds. Status of the defense grid, he asked. Commander Fatma Al-Zahawi checked her console. Defense platforms Alpha through Echo are online and operational. Admiral, the quantum entanglement communication network is functioning at 97% efficiency. We can coordinate fleet movements with virtually zero lag time. Lee nodded with satisfaction. For years, humanity had been developing technologies in secret, hiding their true capabilities from Confederation observers. Now, freed from those constraints, human innovation was advancing at an exponential rate. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "sensors are detecting spatial distortions at coordinates 227 Mark 45. Signature matches NOMA technology." "Alert status," Lee ordered, "but hold fire unless fired upon." The bridge crew tensed as a ship emerged from what appeared to be a tear in the fabric of space itself. It was the same asymmetrical design they had seen in the Sentinel recording, but much larger. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "On screen," Lee commanded. The view screen activated, showing not one but 3 nomads. Their silver skins seemed to shimmer with subtle patterns of light. "Admiral Lee," the central figure spoke, "I am Pathfinder Tevale. We have traveled far to reach you again." "Your warning was timely," Lee replied. "The Confederation destroyed one of our monitoring stations." "Merely the beginning," Tevale said. "Even now, they gather their forces. They will not allow humanity to remain independent. They fear what you might become." "So I've been told," Lee said dryly. "But what I want to know is why. What is this great darkness your people mentioned?" The nomads exchanged glances before Tevale responded. "We must speak with your leaders directly. What we have discovered affects the fate of all life in this galaxy." The nomad delegation was transported to Earth under heavy security. In a specially prepared conference room deep beneath New Geneva, President Santos and her advisors met with Pathfinder Tevale and 2 other nomads who introduced themselves as Navigator Celine and Memory Keeper Vortex. "We appreciate your willingness to meet," Santos began, "but I must insist on clarity. What threat faces us that the Confederation has been hiding?" Memory Keeper Vortex stepped forward. Unlike the others, his silver skin was etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as he moved. "To understand the threat," he said, "you must first understand the true nature of the Galactic Confederation." A holographic projection appeared above the conference table, showing the galaxy with numerous points of light representing civilizations. The Confederation was not formed for cooperation or mutual benefit, Vortex explained. It was created by the elder species as a means of control, a way to prevent any younger species from developing technologies that might challenge their dominance. "We've discovered as much," Director Okafor noted. "But the reason behind this control is what you don't know," Vortex continued. The hologram changed, showing a vast emptiness between galactic arms. Approximately 50,000 years ago, the elder species detected something approaching our galaxy from intergalactic space. Something vast, intelligent, and entirely alien to all known life forms. The hologram zoomed in, showing what appeared to be a cloud of darkness moving slowly but inexorably toward the Milky Way. "The Great Darkness," Santos whispered. "A consciousness that exists between dimensions," Navigator Celine explained, her voice melodic but grave. "It feeds on energy, particularly the energy generated by advanced technological civilizations. The elder species encountered it first and barely survived. Instead of preparing the galaxy to face this threat together," Pathfinder Tevale added, "they chose a different path. They formed the Confederation to limit technological development, to keep the galaxy's energy signature low enough that the darkness would pass us by." Dr. Nakamura leaned forward. "They're deliberately keeping civilizations technologically stunted too." "What? Hide from this thing?" "Precisely," Vortex nodded. "A galaxy-wide suppression of innovation to avoid detection." "But you left," Santos observed. "Your people and others broke away from the Confederation." "We believe there was another way," Tevale said. "That advanced technology, properly directed, could create defenses against the darkness. For 10,000 years, we and other independent species have been developing such technologies. Have you succeeded?" Admiral Lee asked bluntly. The nomads exchanged glances again. "Partially," Celine admitted. We can detect the darkness, track its movements. We can even communicate with it in limited ways. But we cannot stop it. Its consciousness is too alien, its power too vast, Tavil explained. Our attempts to reason with it have failed. It sees all technological life as nothing more than energy to be consumed. So why come to us? Santos asked. What can humanity offer that you haven't already tried in 10,000 years? Because humans think differently, Vortex said simply. In less than a century since joining the Confederation, you've developed technologies along paths none of us ever considered. Your quantum fold drive alone demonstrates this. It achieves similar results to our dimension shifters, but works on entirely different principles. The Confederation fears your potential, Celine added. We hope for it. Santos was silent for a long moment, considering the implications. How long do we have before this darkness reaches our galaxy? Less than 2 Earth years, Tavil answered. It has accelerated since our last calculations. The room fell silent. I need to consult with my advisors, Santos finally said. You understand that this is overwhelming information. Of course, Tavil nodded. But know this, the Confederation will not wait for your decision. Even now, they prepare to neutralize humanity, believing your destruction necessary for the greater survival. After the nomads had been escorted to their quarters, President Santos remained with her closest advisors. Could this be some elaborate deception? General Rivera asked. A way to manipulate us into a conflict with the Confederation. To what end? Director Okafor countered. The nomads have technology far beyond ours. If they wanted to use us, there are simpler ways. Besides, Dr. Nakamura added, their story explains everything. The Confederation's suppression of technology, their panic at our withdrawal, even the restricted zones. It all fits. Santos stared at the holographic representation of the darkness that the nomads had left projected above the table. If they're telling the truth, she said slowly, then the Confederation's approach has a certain logic to it, keeping the galaxy's technological level low enough to avoid detection. It's the logic of fear, Admiral Lee argued, of surrender before the battle is even fought. And it assumes this darkness can't be reasoned with or stopped. Dr. Nakamura added. The nomads said they've had limited success communicating with it. Perhaps with fresh perspectives, we could find a breakthrough. Santos nodded. Assemble a team. Our best minds in physics, communication theory, xenobiology. I want them working with the nomads immediately. And the Confederation? General Rivera asked. We'll need time, Santos decided. Admiral, accelerate our defensive preparations. If the Confederation decides to move against us, I want them to face a cost too high to bear. Within days, humanity's alliance with the nomads became public knowledge. Soon after, other independent species began to emerge from hiding. The crystalline Tyrell, the energy-based Void Weavers, the bioorganic Gaia Collective. Each had their own reasons for leaving the Confederation, their own approaches to technology and survival. Under Dr. Nakamura's coordination, this unlikely coalition began sharing knowledge and resources at an unprecedented rate. Humanity's quantum physics theories merged with nomad dimensional understanding. Tyrell crystal computing enhanced human artificial intelligence concepts. Void Weaver energy manipulation techniques revolutionized human power systems. The combined research facility on Europa became known as the Nexus, a fitting reclamation of a term previously associated with Confederation control. There, scientists from a dozen species worked tirelessly to understand the nature of the Great Darkness and develop means to communicate with it, or if necessary, defend against it. Ambassador Elena Reyes found herself serving as the diplomatic coordinator for this new alliance, a role that constantly stretched her abilities to mediate between vastly different species and thought patterns. How do we even know if we're making progress? She asked Dr. Nakamura during one late-night strategy session. The scientist smiled tiredly. That's the fascinating thing about working with such diverse perspectives. Each species defines progress differently. The Void Weavers measure it in energy patterns we can barely detect. The Tyrell see it in crystalline structures that would take our computers years to analyze. But are we any closer to actually communicating with the darkness? I think so. Nakamura nodded. The nomads established basic communication using dimensional resonance patterns, but the concepts exchanged were too alien for meaningful dialogue. Our AI translation matrices are helping bridge that gap, creating a kind of conceptual dictionary. Elena shook her head in wonder. And to think the Confederation wanted to keep all these species isolated from each other. Fear is a powerful motivator, Nakamura observed. The elder species experienced the darkness firsthand. Their trauma shaped their entire civilization, and by extension, the Confederation itself. Speaking of which, Elena said, our intelligence networks report increased Confederation fleet movements near the edge of our defensive perimeter. They're not happy about our new alliances. They wouldn't be, Nakamura agreed. We're the living embodiment of their worst fears, species cooperating, technology advancing rapidly, drawing attention to the galaxy. Do you think they're right to be afraid? Elena asked quietly. Nakamura considered the question. I think they chose the path that seemed safest to them. But safety isn't always found in hiding. Sometimes you have to face the darkness to overcome it. 3 months later, humanity faced its first direct confrontation with Confederation forces. A battle fleet led by Elder Zivnar himself entered the Sol system, bypassing the outer defensive perimeter through what appeared to be previously unknown spatial corridors. Admiral Lee's response was swift and decisive. The Earth Defense Fleet, now equipped with technologies developed in cooperation with the Independent Species Alliance, engaged the Confederation vessels near Jupiter's orbit. From the command center beneath New Geneva, President Santos and her advisors watched the battle unfold through quantum-entangled sensors. Confederation ships moved with precision born of millennia of military tradition, but humanity's vessels demonstrated an unpredictability and adaptiveness that kept their opponents constantly off balance. They expected us to be easy prey, General Rivera observed. They didn't anticipate how quickly we'd advance. Zivnar is requesting communication, Director Okafor reported. Put him through, Santos ordered. The main display showed the Thorel Elder, his chitinous exoskeleton now adorned with military insignia. President Santos. He greeted her, his translator converting his clicks into standard Galactic. This conflict is unnecessary. Return to the Confederation. Accept our guidance, and hostilities will cease. You fired on our monitoring station without provocation, Santos replied calmly. You've entered our sovereign space with a battle fleet. Those are not the actions of someone seeking peace. You do not understand the forces you are meddling with, Zivnar insisted. Your alliance with the nomads and other renegades endangers the entire galaxy. You mean the Great Darkness, Santos said, watching the Elder's reaction carefully. Yes, we know about it. We know the Confederation was created to hide from it rather than fight it. Zivinar's limbs twitched in agitation. Not hide. Survive. You cannot fight such a force. It destroyed entire civilizations before the Confederation existed. We learned to exist beneath its notice, while abandoning countless worlds on the galactic rim, Santos countered. Your survival strategy sacrifices anyone who can't be part of your controlled experiment. Some must be sacrificed for the greater whole, Zivnar said without remorse. Better some worlds than all worlds. There's another way, Santos insisted. Together, working openly, sharing knowledge instead of suppressing it, we can find a solution that saves everyone. Knave. Zivinar's translator barely managed to convey his contempt. You will draw the darkness directly to us with your reckless advancement. Already it accelerates toward our galaxy, drawn by the energy signatures of your coalition. You doom us all. Is that why you attacked? Santos asked. Fear. Necessity, Zivnar replied coldly. Surrender, or we will be forced to take more drastic measures. The transmission ended abruptly. Admiral Lee reports the Confederation fleet is withdrawing. General Rivera announced. They've suffered significant losses and appear to be regrouping near Saturn. Santos nodded grimly. They'll be back, and with greater numbers. Zivnar isn't wrong about one thing. Our activities are likely drawing the darkness's attention. We need to accelerate our research efforts. Dr. Nakamura's team reports a breakthrough in the communication interface, Director Okafor said. They believe they can establish meaningful dialogue with the darkness within weeks rather than months. Then that's our priority, Santos decided. If we can't reason with the Confederation, perhaps we can reason with the very force they fear. On Europa, beneath the ice-covered surface, the Nexus facility hummed with activity. Representatives from all the allied species gathered in the central chamber where Dr. Nakamura and his team had assembled what they called the resonance array, a hybrid technology combining elements from each species' unique approach to interdimensional communication. Ambassador Elena Reyes stood beside Memory Keeper Vortex, watching as the final calibrations were made. "Will it work?" she asked. The Nomad's star-filled eyes studied the complex apparatus. "It is unlike anything my people ever conceived. The combination of quantum entanglement, crystalline processing, void energy manipulation, and your artificial intelligence creates possibilities we never imagined. But will it let us communicate with the darkness?" "I believe it will," Vortex replied. "Whether the darkness will listen is another question entirely." Dr. Nakamura